Hi, welcome to the Quiet Zone Coaching. I'm Susan Patang, and today we're going to get into the next part, part three of finding happiness. How can I find happiness? I mentioned in one of the earlier recordings that there were two things that usually get in the way of our happiness, and one of them is not being in the moment, okay, which we talked about earlier. And the second is managing our expectations. We generally have expectations of the way the world works or how we think it should work, and that's not necessarily the way things do work. Um, People will behave in ways that we don't find acceptable. That doesn't mean that other people are going to necessarily do what we think they should be doing. So we have to adjust our expectations. And we're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about developing a value system and also using the power questions. This is something that I put together for a client a while ago, and honestly, it works really, really well. And we will talk about that a little bit later. This has to do with managing what we do with moments that are less than satisfactory. Okay. A lot of times we're happy in the moment. We're finding gratitude. We're finding wonder and amazement and blah, 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 all these wonderful things. But not every moment in life is great. That's just the way life is. So not only do our expectations of how things should happen and how people should behave get in the way of our happiness, but also the fact that that's just the way life is. Sometimes crappy things happen. So what do we do with that? How do we work around that in our minds so that we can maintain a sense of peace and contentment and calm even in the midst of a storm? So that's what we're going to talk about today. The first thing we're going to talk about is developing a value system. And I know that that doesn't seem like it makes much of a difference one way or the other, but it does. Our values are going to dictate or should be dictating how we behave in life. When we behave in ways that are incongruent with our value system, this creates cognitive dissonance in our brains. It's a problem for us to process. So it's important to sit down and figure out, what do you value in life? Um, and I know a lot of us go, oh, well, yes, all the standard things, kindness and compassion and, whatever, reliability, honesty. Yes, those are things that most of us say that we value. But it's important to sit down, write them down, because as I mentioned in our last video chat, that writing things down actually reinforces the information in your brain. So it's good to have it written down and to actually think about it. And that way you can be conscious of making sure that your behavior falls within the parameters of your value system. Um, so some values are, and I have some written down here: honesty, reliability, kindness and compassion, hard work, efficiency, commitment, open-mindedness. There are as many different values as there are people on the planet. So take the moment to decide what is important to you in life. Write those things down and take the conscious step of making sure that your behaviors mirror those values. And another thing that we can do that is related to this is to write down, and you can do this all in your gratitude journal. These are things that you can go back to and refer to later. Like we said in the last session about when you're having a crappy day, you can go back and read about, well, you know what, not every day is going to be like today, because look what happened yesterday or last week or whatever. And you can do the same thing with writing down your values. Well, like I really am not sure that fell within my value system, or I thought of something else that's important to me, and you go back and write it down. But another thing that you can write down in your journal is, and this is related to your values, what kind of person do you want to be? Now, you may already be some of those things. So you want to be kind and compassionate. You want to be the kind of person who sets healthy limits, maybe. Um, some people, I had one client who said, I want to be able to leave the house and enjoy my life because she felt trapped in her house. Um, one of my clients said, I want to be impactful in my world and help others. That what I just thought that was so wonderful. What a wonderful goal that is to have for yourself. Some people say they want to be strong and be self-assured. They want to be the kind of person that other people look up to for guidance. I want to be the kind of person who manages time efficiently. And to be honest with you, my favorite one, thank you, Kathy, if you watch this video, I want to be the kind of person my dog thinks I am. How amazing is that? But in your journal, write down what kind of person do you want to be, whether you're already that person or not. Write it down. Okay. And again, this is very closely related to what your value system is. And also, we're going to have another application for it in a minute. There are part of the power questions will involve what kind of person you want to be. And also, when we get to the video on self-esteem, that's going to also have an impact on building self-esteem. So that's something we're going to talk about a little later. But it's important, write this stuff down. The second thing I want to talk about is, of course, our expectations, because aside from being mindful, this is one of the things that keeps us from experiencing happiness in life. So many times we get angry because we think things should be a certain way. People should behave the way we think is the right way. But guess what? They don't. Okay. Things do not happen the way that we think they should happen all the time. If we had nirvana, okay, if everything was happy, happy, joy, joy, Ren and Stimpy all the time, we would be bored as hell. Okay. There would be no stimulation. There would be no challenges to overcome. There would be no sense of satisfaction in accomplishing a difficult task. So, yeah, you know what? Expect things to be a little difficult from time to time. Here are some questions that you can ask yourself when you feel that maybe your expectations are out of whack, or that you think things, if you catch yourself saying, oh, I think, he shouldn't be doing that. Well, here's some questions you can ask yourself when you get there. So what are some of the things that caused this situation to happen in the first place? Because have you heard of the butterfly effect? Okay, and that's the concept of a butterfly is flapping its wings in Brazil, starts a chain of events that ends up with a hurricane in the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so while that seems fantastic, it's possible. Okay, this can happen. One thing happens, which leads to another thing. It's like dominoes falling, and sometimes there are linchpins that cause things to happen in the first place. So when we feel like something should be a certain way or it shouldn't have happened that way, what caused things to happen like that in the first place? So maybe you can find some behavior of your own that you can change to prevent it from happening again in the future. Okay, and just by understanding sometimes how something happened, or why somebody behaved the way that they did, it takes away some of the sting. Finding some compassion for other people. And that's where the next question comes in. What are some of the reasons that someone may have acted the way that they did? And the hint here is it may have nothing to do with you. Somebody might have had a fight with their wife that morning, or they may have stepped in dog poop, or who knows. Okay, so their boss could have just yelled at them. They just might have spilled coffee all over their desk. Who knows? It may have nothing to do with you, but you ended up catching the brunt of their behavior. And no, they shouldn't behave that way, but guess what? They did. Okay. So by understanding why somebody behaved the way that they did, it can take away that sting. That doesn't justify their behavior. Okay. Sometimes we do have to set limits, and we will talk about how to set limits and trying to determine how to set limits when it's appropriate, when we talk about conflict resolution in a future video. But understanding why somebody behaved the way they did can just take away some of our irritation. Finding some compassion, it's like, oh wow, you know what? He's got to commute from, way out in Bumblesnot there, and that had to be stressful. No wonder he feels like this when he first comes in the office. Give him some space, okay? Do you see the difference? Instead of saying he shouldn't act that way, okay. What higher good can come from this? For example, like let's say you get delayed in traffic. Okay, well, maybe by avoiding another light further down the road, you avoided an accident. Maybe by being delayed by 5 minutes, you got a better parking spot. Maybe you avoided a nasty phone call by coming into the office 5 minutes later than when you arrived. So there you go. There's always something good that might have come from this that we may never know. And of course, then there's my favorite, what lesson can I learn from this situation? There is something to be learned from just about everything, just like gratitude, even if it's just that I survived that, good for me, pat myself on the back. But this is a really good growth tool. Okay, so my value system says I should be a kind and compassionate person. What can I learn from this situation? I learned how to give somebody else the benefit of the doubt. I learned how to, this is a really good self-improvement technique, and it's something to keep from repeating negative behaviors down the road. Okay, so what is the end result of this situation? Doesn't everything tend to work out in the end? Sometimes bad things happen, but then later on we discover that the bad things that happen, the things that we think ought not to have happened, that we did not expect to have happened, but they actually end up turning into something positive later on down the road. And that would never have happened if that first negative event hadn't taken place. So everything does tend to work out for the best in the end. Remind yourself of that. Also, will my expectations change a situation or change the way someone else behaves? Okay. And the answer is no. Our expectations will change absolutely nothing. The only person over whom we have control is ourselves. Okay. Other people are going to behave the way that they behave. Situations are going to evolve the way that they evolve. The butterfly effect. Will my expectation of what something should or should not be change anything? Absolutely not. We can't change the weather on Jupiter because we think it should be different. So why would our expectation change anything? That doesn't mean that we can't search for something positive to do about a situation that's negative. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. The last thing that you can ask yourself is, what's something positive that you can take from this experience? What can I take from this? And again, there is always something for which to be grateful, something, the silver lining in every cloud. And it can sometimes only be, I had the strength to get through it. Pat yourself on the back, but you did. You're still breathing. You're still here. You're still talking. You may be angry. You may be feeling emotion, but you're still here and you survived it. So that is always something to be grateful for, even if there was no positive lesson that you can find in a situation. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the power questions. And this is the first step in overcoming negative emotions, negative situation, or dealing with negative people. We can't stop to analyze and pick apart and unpack the box of a negative emotion or situation in the moment. Okay, so the power questions are questions that you can ask yourself in the moment, okay, to get yourself through. And then if you find that that you're feeling stressed out about it, or upset, or angry, or frustrated, or whatever, at a later time, you can always sit down and say, okay, so why did that happen? And we'll talk about that in the next video. But for now, I'm just going to give you a couple of questions that you can ask yourself in the moment to get through and bring yourself back to a place of awe, wonder, gratitude, and happiness, okay, in the moment, okay? Usually, I only get past the first two questions, and I'm okay when I'm in the middle of a situation. And I will give you an example in a minute. So the first question is, how important is this really? Okay. How important now, a situation might be important overall. Okay. But how important is it right now in this moment? Okay. Many times things that we think are that are driving us crazy and causing us stress and making us frustrated and angry, they're really not important. Okay. Or they're not important to worry about right now. So if it is important right now, we move on to the next question. But if it's not important right now, put it in a pot on the back burner or let it go. Okay. If it is important right now, you can say, what is something positive and constructive I can do about this right now? Okay. Um, what can you do to fix the situation? What can you do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Be solution oriented. Be positive with your response. Okay. Um, what is it now? Here's the next question. What is it about this that is making me feel okay? Label and identify that emotion. I'm feeling angry right now. So let's have an example. Okay. Let's say you're driving to work and somebody cuts you off in the car. Okay. So how important is this really? Okay. In the grand scheme of things, it's really not that important. Are you going to remember it in 5 years? Probably not. Are you going to remember it in 15 minutes? Probably not. Okay. Uh, let it go. Okay. Just let them go. What is something positive and constructive that I can do about this? This is question number 2. Okay, somebody just cut me off in traffic. It's not really that important. So what are my choices? Well, I could give the drive the one finger salute. I could pull up next to him and scream at him through the window. I could tailgate him. Okay, I could behave like a general jerk and cut him off. Okay, is there anything positive or constructive about any of those behaviors? No. Okay. Is it going to make you feel better? Well, maybe in the short term, but now you're going to be pissed off about it all day long, aren't you? Okay. So, what is something positive and constructive that you can do about it right now? Let it go. Okay. They're behaving. Maybe somebody, why would somebody, they shouldn't have done that, right? They shouldn't have done that. You're absolutely right. They shouldn't have done that, but they did it, didn't they? So, there's nothing that you can do about it. Let it go. Think about what might be causing that person to behave that way. Maybe they're in a hurry. Maybe somebody's in the hospital. Maybe they're not feeling well. Maybe they're late for work. Okay, let them go. Um, okay, so now the third question is, what is it about this that's making me feel angry, irritated, self-righteous? Okay, these are the labeled emotions that I'm feeling right now. Um, and what is something I can do about those emotions right now? Okay. Um, and here's where our personal value work comes in. The next question is, what would a person who is doing this situation? So is whatever personal value. So if you're somebody who is calm but strong, somebody who sets healthy boundaries but doesn't get upset, somebody who is kind and compassionate, whatever those things are, what would they do in this situation? Okay, so somebody who is, I like to think of myself as being very reasonable but strong. Okay, well, being strong does not mean I have to chase this guy down and beat him up. Okay. Let it go. Okay. Just let it go. Um, the next question is, how do I want to feel at the end of this situation? Okay. So, how do I want to feel for the rest of the day? What emotion do I want to take away from this? Do I want to be frustrated with myself for losing control? Do I want to feel angry for the rest of the day? Or do I want to feel grateful that I kept my temper and I let it go? Okay. Do I want to feel proud of myself for letting it go, pat myself on the back, good for me? Okay. What's the more comfortable emotion? What do you think? Okay. And then the last one is, what is something positive that came out of this situation? Okay. And again, it might not be anything more than I survived it. I let the guy go, okay, without giving him the finger. I let him go without screaming at him through the car window. Um, I realized what was happening in the moment and I stopped myself from becoming angry, pat myself on the back. I identified the emotions that I was feeling, and I will be able to work through them later if I have to, if there's, because if, remember what we said about other people's behavior not having anything to do with you sometimes. Sometimes our response to situations has nothing to do with the situation at hand. There's something else. And if you have an emotion that sticks with you or is out of proportion to the event, chances are there's something else going on that you're going to want to unpack and pick apart. And that's, again, something that we're going to talk about in another video. Um, Another thing is that I do want to mention is that there is a concept in dialectical behavioral therapy called radical acceptance. Okay. And this goes along with managing our expectations. Sometimes there is nothing we can do or very little that we can find in a situation that is positive. Sometimes our emotions are there, and despite whatever work that we do to try to get through them and work through them, because pushing aside emotion and packing it down is just going to be like a volcano and have it explode again later, even worse. And by not working through emotions, they will come back and haunt you again, and you will repeat the same behavior over and over again. But there are some times when no matter how hard we try to work through emotions, no matter how hard we try to be positive and fix a situation, it doesn't work. Okay. So that's when we pick out that concept of radical acceptance. Okay. Uh, it is. It is what it is. There is nothing that we can do to change it. We can't work through this emotion. We can't find a cause for this emotion. We can't stop that driver from cutting us off in traffic. We can't stop our boss from being a jerk. We can't stop that customer from yelling at us, and we try no matter what we do, and yet it's still there. So acknowledge this is the situation, okay? And what I find is very helpful, particularly when it comes to negative emotions, is that labeling, okay? Identify and label it. Okay, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling irritated. I'm feeling angry. Okay, here they are. These are the emotions that I'm feeling. Okay, I'm going to let them ride along. Okay, they're coming behind me, but they're not in control. I'm in control. I'm feeling them. I'm acknowledging them. I see them. I see you. I know you're there, but you're not driving. I am. Okay. Imagine them as being in the back of the car with you, strapped in with their seatbelts, and they're coming along for the ride, but you're driving. Until the next time, I hope this is helpful. This is Susan Patang from The Quiet Zone Coaching, www.thequietzonecoaching.com. If you're interested in learning how you can apply some of these techniques to finding happiness in your own life, please go to my website, click on Contact, and there is a link there that'll take you to my auto scheduler, and you can schedule a free discovery call so we can figure out what's going on in your life and how I can help you get where you want to be. Until next time, thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.